Hi everybody, sorry about the delay on this one. It might be a few days from the actual month, but normally I try to get these done by the last Friday of the month, but unfortunately that was the 31st, and even worse, that was my last day of work, so I didn't actually have as much time to focus on it as I wanted to. But here I am uh, in June talking about the May albums of the month. We go through the worst albums that May had to offer that I didn't get to talk about in a separate video. Then proceed to the alright ones, the ones I think are kind of in the middle, and then we go to the best ones. So that's pretty much the formula still. So let's start off with the worst albums this month has to offer. Starting off, we have the new one by Red Handed Denial, A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia. I couldn't really get into this one as much as I wanted to. I think there's some interesting ideas, especially with Parasite, and I even found myself enjoying Smokescreen, but other than that, there's not really anything I actually enjoyed from this record. I just think the instrumentation isn't really strong enough to carry this record. The punchy choruses just aren't really punchy. I just feel like while they try to do something to stand out, it doesn't really. I like the electronic effects, but I also think the kind of 80s electronic synthy direction they want to kind of incorporate a little bit into the metalcore doesn't really work quite as well. Not to mention the driving towards a neon sunset interlude is just really weak, and then they have another interlude, and then I found myself in a virtual dystopia right after Smokescreen, and I just couldn't really get into it. Even the second half of the album just has nothing I really found myself wanting to go back into. It got worse and worse, which is unfortunate. I think there's some promising ideas, but for what it's worth, it's a 2 out of 5, and I think this album could have been a lot better. We got the new one by Evildead with Toxic Grace, a fresh album that I just don't think really holds up very well. You've got some pretty weak guitar solos that try to be the backbone of this record. You've got lyrics that just feel like it's written by an edgy teenager. As well as that, I just think the overall political aspect of it just feels overdone. Like, I don't mind any band doing politics, but the way that they write it here, I can't get into it. It's just a weird thing that just kind of drags the album quality down. It's just kind of barren, to be honest. There's not really much to it. It's just kind of a waste of a listen, I guess. I'll give it a 2 out of 5. Surf punk band Def Leppard released Cold World. Unfortunately, I just don't think Cold World was really that great. I think with all these tracks, nothing really pushed to some of their best sound. It's a lot forgettable formula. I mean, this one kind of pushes a little bit away from surf punk, but what this album has to offer is almost nothing. I think it really speaks loudly for how the band's discography has been up to this record. It's just not really strong in my opinion. I have to give it a 2 out of 5. I'm not really bothered with it. And to end the worst albums of the month, we have Data Diamond by 4 Stroke Baron. It's a prog metal album that just really doesn't work in my opinion. 4 Stroke Baron's a good band. I got to see him support Vola alongside Voyager for the Witness tour. They played a pretty good performance, and honestly, I think listening to this sounds nowhere near as good as the songs I remember being played there. You start off with the sluggish interlude track on Mew, which is supposed to be a proper song, but it just feels like a long drawn out interlude that goes into Monday, one of the most insufferable songs I've heard this year. I think the vocoder mixed in with just these really irritating noises for the refrain just makes this song so unbearable to listen to. Thankfully The Witch is a step up, and it generally feels more like a 4 Stroke Baron track, but a lot of these songs just feel so weak in my opinion. People in My Image the refrain sounds like he's saying something really inappropriate, I'm not going to say. And the only track I even found myself wanting to go into after going through this album was the final one, Data Diamond, which has Paul Masvidal, the lead singer, and I guess one of the guitarists for Cynic, a band that's been going for quite a while. and you have Adam Yancey, the drummer for Vola. Both of them sing a bit and do a little bit of instrumentation for this track, but you don't really notice it because the instrumentation doesn't really feel as creative with the overall sound that 4-Stroke Baron wants to go for. They also do quite a bit of singing, but since everything's vocoded, pretty much almost every vocal on this has got vocoder in some way, it just makes it even more unbearable, and you don't even recognise who's singing half the time, so it makes it even more bland. And when the vocoder isn't a big problem, sometimes the lead singer just sounds like he's doing a Fred Durst impression. You have a lot of pronunciations that just remind me of just something Limp Bizkit would do. It's a really weird blend of just stuff that shouldn't really go together. So, yeah, not a big fan. I'm honestly have to give it a 1.5 out of 5. Now moving on to the alright albums, the albums that I don't think are quite as bad as the worst, or just not good enough to be as good as the best. So we're starting this one off talking about the new Pain album, I Am. This industrial metal band released the track Party in My Head a few years ago, and this one pretty much blew up to being one of their biggest songs. So it's pretty nice to see this kind of being used for the record. It's the first Pain album in a little while, and I think there's some good ideas they have with it, but as a whole I think the best stuff you kind of get towards the start, and it's more of a rinse repeat of just a similar writing that just doesn't really push for a strong sound for the entire record. I just dropped by to say goodbye. I think when they kind of go for a little bit more of a heavier industrial metal, it worked better. It's not a bad album, but yeah, I think for Pain this is not their best. The new album by Teramaze, Ellie, A Wonderful Fall from Grace, was an album I was looking forward to, but I think as a whole it translates to just a decent listen. I like the elements they have for the instrumentation. I like the other components that carries the songs, like The Will of Ellie. I think there's some great instrumentation, especially on that track. But as a whole, I don't think really anything besides the guitars and the good vocals and the pretty good production really stood out to me as much. I think the later half of the record just kind of didn't quite click with me as the first did. I think it had a decent opening, but kind of struggled to push beyond the track Madame Roma, which, to be fair, it is what it is. I think Teramaze is a pretty great band. I just didn't really find myself enjoying this new prog metal release as much as I wanted to, but still it's decent, and I think there's some good ideas that they brought in here. This new Rotten Christ album is just alright in my opinion. I think the problem is it does have some really good ideas for what they have to sound. I think the sound is great, and for the direction they want to take to more of their modern stuff, I'm liking it, apart from the fact that they've done this almost exact idea for the last few records that is kind of just feeling like a rinse repeat cycle. There's one or two songs that do feel distinctive to me. I think the Apostate does have a bit of originality to it compared to some of the previous stuff, but as a whole a lot of it just kind of feels like, again, a Rotten Christ record, and a very similar to the last album one. In fact, it's decent, but I just kind of wish the band did a little bit more to make this feel more refreshing, because this isn't really refreshing. Finally, we have the new Warlord track. It is alright. I don't really have much to say. I just think from the songwriting part to this, it's not really strong enough to carry the whole record. The instrumentation, just like with Teramaze, is good though. I think it makes up for the weaker points, but for a consistent listen, it's just kind of a whatever album in my opinion. Don't really have much else to say than that. And finally, we're moving on to the best tracks of the month, and we're going to start off with the new one by Dååth, The Deceivers. This album is amazing. This is a progressive death metal album. I didn't really know much about them, but I just got recommended this one and thought I'd give it a listen, and I'm quite happy I did. There's a lot of features, which, you know, it's not really a strong point. I feel like the songs work with or without features, but I think since you have a lot, I find it quite interesting. Some of them, we have Dan Sugarman from Ice Nine Kills. I believe he is the latest guitarist to join the band, which is pretty cool. He's got some great riffs here, and I think his addition's quite awesome. Dean Lamb from Archspire for the track Ascension is also a really good collab and probably one of the best tracks on the record. We have Per Nilsson from Scar Symmetry. I quite like this one as well. I think Son of Foray is got some of the best grooves, instrumentation. Just love how aggressive this one goes. And then we even have one that has Mark Holcomb from Periphery, as well as we have Mick Gordon on this one, which is very surprising to see Mick Gordon on this, to be honest. Like, Motionless and White, I get it because they're quite big, but here, I wasn't expecting that. And we also have Jeff Loomis as well. I did not mention Spyro, but that's because I find it funny how he's on 2 tracks. We have the track No Rest No End for Spyro, and then Unwelcome Return, which to me just sounds like they don't really want him here on the second track, but he's here anyway. I don't know, it's just I thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, this album's great. It's definitely got some of the best riffs from anything prog death metal I've heard in the last 10 years. It's a nice breath of fresh air. It's got some great ideas, some really fun progressive elements, and I just love how punchy this one can be, just with incredible chuggy riffs, and as well as that, I think Unclean is just fantastic on this record. I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I quite like this one. We got the new one by the post-grunge band LOWLIVES with their newest album, Freaking Out. It's a pretty good listen, but I don't really have much else to say than that. I think the album is quite accessible. It definitely has some standout moments and hooks, but for the most part, it just kind of comes off as a slightly above average listen of grunge as well as just hard rock. I like the elements they bring to it, and it has got some numerous songs I do think are quite good to go back into, but after finishing it, I don't think you get much more an impression in. Yeah, it's just good. Probably one of the weaker good albums this year, but I don't think it's bad enough to be alright. It's definitely better than alright. So yeah, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. It's a decent to good listen. We got the new one by Cage the Elephant, Neon Pill. This one actually was quite interesting. I think it's got a bouncy, fun load of tracks to give you a little bit more of a indie dance rock sound, but they also just push for mainly just indie with them. I don't think there's really anything I dislike too much other than the 1 or 2 odd tracks like Over Your Shoulder or Out Loud, but I think a lot of them just have some refreshing hooks, a lot of fun instrumentation. It gives you a bit more of a bouncy, vibrant direction to go for, and following Social Cues, this is a huge step up, so I'm definitely much more preferred to this Cage the Elephant sounds than that. But yeah, I don't think it's still the band at their best, I will say, however, but I'll give this one a 3 out of 5. It's a good listen. We got the new one by the post-hardcore band Capstan with the Mosaic. This is a pretty fun album. You have a lot of fun breakdowns, a lot of heavier moments blending in with the post-hardcore sound the band has. There's a little bit of progression, more progressive elements here and there. I think some of the weaker stuff on this record might have to be some of the guest appearances. I'm not saying they're all bad, but Heart to Heart really isn't a track I care that much for, neither with What You Want, and you have some interlude-y, more focused tracks like An Open Letter, but this is 18 songs. And the fact that some of them I'm not really that big on, but the rest are really good, definitely makes more than up for it. It's a really fun, bouncy, punchy album with a lot of strong moments to it. Capstan's definitely one of the best post-hardcore albums this year so far. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5, I quite like it. And finally we have the new one by Like Moths to Flames. This is The Cycles of Trying to Cope, another record that released on my birthday. It's really good. I just didn't have the time to cover it until more recently, but going into this album, when I did listen to it, I really enjoyed it. I think for what they bring out in the metalcore, they bring out some of the best components. The writing definitely goes for a lot more of a personal, more hurtful, lyrics, you could say, especially since the lead singer definitely is writing some of the most depressing, most gritty, miserable lyrics I've seen in a metalcore band in quite a while. I think, as well as that, and having just some of the heaviest songs like Moths to Flames has, blending in some really good melodic moments to some of these rapid fire heavy metalcore tracks is really good. Every song is just great in my opinion. I did find that it took a few songs to really get into the meat of the record, but when you do, it's just bang after banger. I feel like the album just gets better with each track you're listening to, so we definitely got it there. I think this is a really strong record from like Moths to Flames, and I'm happy I actually got to talk about this one at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5. Pretty strong album. And that is the end of the video. So this probably taken me a bit longer to work on as I wanted to. I tried out a new layout to make it look a little bit more, I guess, clean, because staring at like a black screen with just some colours doesn't really make for good structuring. But yeah, I just dabbled with something. I might change it if want something better looking, but for now I just want to make these, the videos look a bit more professionally made, even if some of them are just piss take, like the Trapped one where it's just a zoom in of Chris Taylor Brown's face. Stuff like that I just want to kind of do a little jokingly, but for the most part I do want the channel just to kind of look a little bit more smart and tidy. So yeah, that is the albums of the month though. It's been an interesting month because I think we've had a lot of weak stuff this month. I honestly say it's probably one of the worst months, but also you have some of the best releases as well, so you win some, you lose some. But May, it's been a very mixed bag of either good, alright, or really bad stuff, and I mean it. We have some of the worst albums for sure, like Trap, that came out this month. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.